the first thing is to, one, be curious. Be like a sponge. जिससे जैसे भी जितना भी सीख सकते हो उतना सीखो. एंड डोंट मीन योर क्यूबिकल कि मैं अगर कंटेंट राइटर हूं तो मैं सिर्फ राइटिंग करूंगा. वो डिजाइनर का काम है, वो डिजाइनर करेगा. तो डिजाइनर बोलेगा नहीं मैं क्यों लिखूं, वो कंटेंट राइटर का काम है. वी हैव टू, लाइक हाउ आई टेल यू, branding is a wholesome solution, right? Or it's the best way of nurturing a brand since its birth, right? Similarly, any sort of communication solution is a wholesome solution that needs to come, that we need to come to that conclusion together.
Welcome to Will Talks, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I have this incredible person, Kritika Kaul, with over 10 plus years of experience. And what an experience that is. Brands like Naked by Nykaa, Tata Click Luxury. We've got Westside. We've got cybersecurity companies. We have aromatherapy, projects in education, projects in restaurants, and of late, real estate and fractional investment. Kritika Kaul has done some amazing work in the field of communications. So let's deep dive with my first question right in, Kritika. What is communication? I know that communication is all English speaking and things like that. That's what half of India thinks is communication. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you've done, where you've come from, and this whole thing about communication.
Firstly, thank you for such a grand opening drum roll entry. To be honest, my journey has actually started as a designer, right? In my first lecture, I still remember the director of the college. I studied in MIT, Pune, and he had said this one thing. He had asked us, what is design? Right? And people came up with their own ideas of acha ye hai, visual hai, something looks nice, and this and that and all. He's like, no, it's problem solving, right? Design is merely problem solving, or rather, as extravagantly as you put it, rather, because it's problem solving. It's not just pretty visuals or something that you make and just looks, it's just not like a creation for nothing, right? It's not it's not an expression. Design is not an expression. It's solving a purpose. And then when I moved towards graphic design, where I had to take communication design, right? So solving problems around communication became my goal, right? Initially, of course, like various other designers, even I started with just knowing the softwares, and that is how we were trained initially, that you brush up your skills and then you move on to understanding issues and things and solving problems and things, right? But from the first year itself, we had problem solving as design process was that name of the course, right? We could take any issue and create communication solutions around it.
But this is just like completely changed my perspective for a second. I was like, galat podcast pe aa gaye. Because when we think design, I'm thinking designer sari, I'm thinking color, I'm thinking the way something looks, I'm thinking aesthetics.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking a different color, maybe a different shape, maybe a different structure, maybe. Yeah. That's what I'm always thinking design. When I close my eyes and I think, what is a designer? I start thinking, is it a guy with a brush paint? Is it a guy with a computer or a mouse or a pen tab?
Correct.
What is this whole thing about design? And when you tell me that design is problem solving,
yeah,
I mean, we've got a ton of problems in this world, right? And they need solutions. Is that how things like design thinking,
absolutely,
understanding by design,
absolutely,
all that comes into play here, huh?
So now that is when the whole transformation is moving towards user experience, user interface, brand strategy, and all of these strategies are rooting out of these core principles, right? I was lucky enough to be like having studied in such a curriculum. One, two. I also worked side by side when I was learning, when I was in college. तो जब लोग ऐसे छुट्टी ले लेते थे, 1 महीने की छुट्टी and 2 महीने की छुट्टी, I used to be like, because I was so curious, I wanted to like मैंने ये सीखा, अभी मैं इसको कैसे adapt कर सकती हूँ? How can I use it? Right? Because that is how learning works in favor of us. Right? Like that is how we can make the most of whatever we learn.
सीखा तो करो.
सीखा, उसको practice करो.
Application
करो. Then, and one, you start, see, when you're younger, you are more flexible, you are more agile, right? You are more, like, you know, like I feel jealous.
Hungry for knowledge.
You're hungry for knowledge. You आज कुछ तूफान ही करते type से रहता है, you know. So I was like always like that. And so I started learning and practicing. So I worked in like different companies. I worked in like for those one month internships. Free रहता था मतलब obviously. अभी क्या करेंगे? Experience, exposure के लिए, you know.
Experience के नाम पे पूरा project ही करा लो.
Then I would work. I started working with a small outdoor advertising company. Then I worked with a corporate which was into communication, internal communication for Tata, and then various other smaller boutique studios. Wherever, and I tried every permutation combination within those 4 years. So by the time I got out, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that was purely branding, right? And that was purely branding.
Wait, did you just say branding and that's different from design? and different from communications?
It all flows into one another. Even branding has such multiple layers. It has such multiple layers. ऐसा नहीं है कि मतलब सिर्फ विजुअल ब्रांडिंग रहता है, सिर्फ लोगो हो गया आपका ब्रांडिंग. ऐसा नहीं होता. मैंने टैगलाइन लिख दी, यही आपकी ब्रांडिंग है, यही बोल रहा है. This is talking about the true jazbaat of the company, right? That is not how it is. Like, it is an entire wholesome solution that you need to create from the birth of the brand, ever since the birth of the brand.
So, wait. Now, I have never seen a job ad which says design thinker chahiye, problem solver chahiye, ya I don't know, pata nahi. So I've seen jobs like senior designer, visualizer, copywriter. So let's say some design students are listening to you. I don't even know what a design student is. Let's say somebody who is studying in applied art or commercial art or mass media or advertising. Let's say some of these dudes are listening to us today and they apply for these roles. What are they going to be? What are the biggest challenges they're going to hit? What door are they going to go and bang their head against? Because you've done so much of that. Batao yaar, unbundle it for us.
Tough hai. But the first thing is to, one, be curious. Be like a sponge. जिससे जैसे भी जितना भी सीख सकते हो उतना सीखो. And don't be in your cubicle. कि मैं अगर content writer हूं तो मैं सिर्फ writing करूंगा. वो डिजाइनर का काम है, वो डिजाइनर करेगा. तो डिजाइनर बोलेगा नहीं मैं क्यों लिखूं, वो कंटेंट राइटर का काम है. वी हैव टू, लाइक हाउ आई टेल यू, ब्रांडिंग इज अ होलसम solution, right? Or it's the best way of nurturing a brand since its birth, right? Similarly, any sort of communication solution is a wholesome solution that needs to come, that we need to come to that conclusion together. Your brain can't, and that is why I call, like, even in one of the companies where I was working before, and then my extended team, and whenever I meet a designer, like, you're a design strategist, content strategist. Don't say कि मुझे brief मिला है और मैं बस वही अपने क्यूबिकल में अपना लैपटॉप में ऐसा सर घुसा के बस ब्रीफ है तो मैं बस लिखूंगा जो उन्होंने बोला, मैं बस डिजाइन करूंगा जो उन्होंने बोला.
स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक है तो उसको भी अच्छा दिखाऊंगा.
हाँ, कभी कभार लाइक यू नो आई फेस दिस प्रॉब्लम विद अ लॉट ऑफ फेलो जूनियर डिजाइनर्स एंड थिंग्स, लाइक नहीं बट इट मतलब कंटेंट तो उसका काम था ना. मैंने बोला पर तुम्हें स्पेलिंग पता है ना एलिफेंट का, तो ELEFANT क्यों है वहां पे? उसने मतलब कुछ गलत किया है तो यू डोंट गो अलोंग विद इट कि अरे उसने क्या. वी हैव टू थिंक बियॉन्ड what is, you can have your core expertise in something, but think for the piece of communication you're solving for.
What I'm getting to feel from you is, भाई मैं ये कर रहा हूँ ना तो मैं यही करूँगा, and what they're probably not keeping in the center of that whole thing is that spirit of why we are doing.
Exactly.
किसके लिए कर रहे हो?
Exactly.
You may do a great job at your level, at your level of input, but the whole piece may not work well.
Exactly.
You know, you're assuming that every piece will work well and hence the whole thing will work well. But if no one is thinking about that, it's not going to work well.
Exactly.
You know? So in terms of a brand custodian or in terms of... So how
you have to take ownership.
So how does typical, like this branding word is a big word. So a lot of companies, startups, a lot of small organizations, 5, 10, 20, 30 member people, they say, brand तो हम बाद में बनाएंगे, 500 crore करने. What is this thing about? Can I have a brand if I'm just me?
You are the brand, really.
Thank you.
You have like sub-brands thereafter.
Okay.
So I will take like a little thread from the last weave you created there when you spoke about when we are solving for a problem, we are not curious about the why. Right? Similarly, when you are a brand owner, you also have to think like that. That is when I say people who are creating a solution for you, whether it's a content writer, it's a visual designer or anybody, right? उनके मन में वो why होना चाहिए, right? कि हम लोग ये बना क्यों रहे हैं, किसके लिए बना रहे हैं, right? अगर हमारे मन में ये questions हैं, and if we have all these concerns, right? And we should have these concerns, तो brand owner को तो होना ही चाहिए. Yeah, let us label him as the company owner. I always divide this entire segment. Company, product, company, brand. तुम्हारे पास प्रोडक्ट था, तुमने उसकी कंपनी बना दी. अब तुम कंफ्यूज्ड हो कंपनी और ब्रांड क्या है?
हाँ. And this question comes जब भी Instagram अकाउंट खोलना है, कंपनी के नाम पे डालूं कि ब्रांड के नाम पे? Yeah.
So, in a layman's language, right, I tell people, because a lot of people, they come to me, they're like, कृतिका ये हमारा प्रोडक्ट है और इसका पेरेंट कंपनी का नाम श्री रामदास को लिमिटेड है. No offense to any of this thing. I'm just giving like a dummy name. I'm really sorry. No, nothing, no spoof on it or something. So, मेरी कंपनी पेरेंट कंपनी का नाम ये है, पर मेरे को बेचना है टूथपेस्ट. ठीक है, पर श्री रामदास को लिमिटेड स्टील कंपनी है, पर मैं बनाना चाहता हूँ टूथपेस्ट, राइट? तो फिर ही गोज लाइक, तो अब हम कैसे बेचें?
किसका ब्रांड बना रहे हैं?
हाँ, किसका ब्रांड बना रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, and you know things. So
and they may have 5 more products.
Because I think now that I'm talking to you, I realize a point. कुछ साल पहले वही था मार्केटिंग यार.
Yeah, that
word
was
of mouth was marketing.
Distribution.
हाँ.
Sales.
अभी
Rocky salesman.
अभी हर कोई तो होर्डिंग नहीं बनाएगा, हर कोई तो अभी सोशल मीडिया, डिजिटल मीडिया इतना फैल गया है, and it's gone so far and wide for anyone and everyone to get into marketing, hire a marketeer and all of that, right? But पहले तो वो word of mouth था, अगर होर्डिंग पे आ गए तो अरे बड़ा आदमी है वो, right? Like even right now,
ट्रस्ट मार्कर है वो.
हाँ, होर्डिंग में आ गया, न्यूज़पेपर आर्टिकल में अरे, you know, even right now if I tell you a hoarding, you will maybe think of Amul.
Yeah.
You know, so there are certain perceptions about marketing, and I think we have in India as a market like has evolved so much over the years. We should cut it some slack कि वो पहुंचेगा उस moment पे. But it's just that not everyone should look at, now that we're talking about marketing, like everyone should not look at marketing as only digital marketing and social media marketing and go back to the core, and there are so many other ways of doing that, right? But coming back to what we were talking about, branding in company, brand in company. ब्रांड वो जाता है कि मतलब अभी so sometimes people have gone like, कृतिका आप क्या करोगे? मैं बोला अपने मकान ले लिया है, मैं उसको घर बनाऊंगी.
Right.
You're
going to breathe life into it.
Exactly. How you have the product, right? You have the infrastructure to enable it, to sell it, right? And that's why often in a lot of companies there is a CEO, there is a CTO, there is a COO, there is a CFO. CCO किधर है?
वो क्या होता है?
If you want someone to communicate about your brand or communicate about your product even, don't you think you should have someone to lead the communication for the company? Like someone to lead the communication for the company? Like a chief communication officer? Or a chief commercial officer often, but
no, not commercial officer. I think communication. I think the way you say it, it just hits me that this is so true. It's common sense, right? Because if communication is everything that our brand or our company is going to do and be perceived by, and hence people are going to consider कि इसको मैं पैसा दूँ कि नहीं, 50-100 पे है यार, तुम्हारा क्यों खरीदूँ, correct? And if that is what is going to happen and we don't have a chief communication officer, it means we are still living in that idea of जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, which means chief executive officer जो है, the guy who executes, वापस दिखा रहा है, chief technology officer जो है, वो टेक संभाल रहा है, नेट गया तो उसको बुलाते हैं, भाई CTO को फोन कर.
For all those handling platforms, we are extremely sorry.
Sorry. आपको भी बुलाएंगे हम podcast में. And so CFO पैसा लाता है, salary देता है, funding करता है, chief whatever operations person तो पूरा काम करता है, right? So people start thinking कोई करने के लिए है, कोई पैसा लाने के लिए है, कोई टेक्नोलॉजी करने के लिए है, कोई फंडिंग करेगा, कोई सैलरी देखेगा. They feel like that is it.
That's what I call the brick and mortar philosophy. तभी आप प्रोडक्ट से कंपनी पे रुक गए, right? But people connect to hearts, right? That's what I tell people. I'm like, वो कंपनी कैसे बात करेगी? If we think of a company as a person, ठीक है, वो आदमी या औरत कैसे बात करेंगे? What is he gonna wear? How is he gonna appear in front of certain type of people? Like हम लोग अगर जाएंगे, we wear different kind of clothes when we go for a wedding or with relatives. We are different when we are with friends. We are different when we are with our colleagues, right? Similarly, a company has different target audiences, has different people with which they interact with differently, right? So how are you planning all of that? Like, don't you think that a person, and purely I'm not advertising myself here, but don't you
Kritika Kaul, ladies and gentlemen.
But don't you think a person who has worked with multiple type of businesses and multiple type of target audiences will be able to craft, or at least help you craft that method or that process or that structure or that department in your own system? We need to make space, because यार अब वो time गया जब कोलगेट बस कोलगेट जैसा बिक रहा था. अब कोलगेट में चारकोल है, कोलगेट में नमक है. कोई किसने लाया? आई एम टेलिंग यू, कोई वहां पे बैठा हुआ था, उसने बोला कि देखो भाई, अभी देयर आर सो मेनी टूथपेस्ट, राइट? every market is so saturated. आप कुछ भी ले लो.
It's a problem of plenty now.
It is a problem of plenty. There was a time when a brand could stand out saying that I am the only one doing this. And of course, there are certain brands who are still doing that, right? But what about the brands who are getting lost in that saturation, in that clutter, in that noise?
This is a brilliant point, Kritika. The reason I'm saying that is earlier, there was only one brand or one company doing something in one category.
तो वो ऐसा hero बन गया.
ठीक है, बस that's a zoop hero, right? Because there's no worthy opponent. And then there's this other saying in sociology and civilization, the saying that history repeats itself. Okay? Which means 5 years later, 10 years later, there will be one brand only. It will not be more brands. You know why? My thinking.
They've been sucking everything.
Because the others just didn't know how to build a brand, so they died.
Maybe.
एक ही बचेगा. Point is, will we be that one? Today, if I talk about search engines, what is the only company that comes to your mind? It comes to your mind, right?
Yeah.
Today, if I talk about, let's say, email, what is the one name that comes to your mind, right? If I talk to you about, let's say, internet, if I talk to you about computers, one or two brands will come to your mind. If I talk to you about a operating system, only one or two things come to your mind. Which means in a world where branding, communication is critical, it almost is your business survival strategy.
Correct.
तुम ब्रांड नहीं बना रहे हो तो कुछ भी नहीं बना रहे हो. कुछ बनाओ ही मत ना.
See, it's like, again, going back to our point where we are talking about, while the creators or the custodians of the brand needs to have that question to, or the answers to why, who is communicating that answer? And how are you communicating it?
And most of the time they answer that question saying the medium. I am communicating using internet, or I am communicating using hoarding. They just misanswer that question, right? Your question is, who's crafting the message?
You know, I will...
did you have some crazy challenges in your work? Because you may not have joined a company whenever you worked. You may not have joined a company in a nascent stage. You may have joined in a company where either there has been already a crazy, insane plan which was put into place, or there was no plan put into place, and hopefully they say, hey, Kritika, come, we give you all the freedom to do it, and then actually they're not giving you freedom, right? So, any crazy experiences, any moments of vulnerability that comes to your mind?
So,
and how did you handle it? All those design guys listening to us, give them a little hack.
First, you need to be loud.
Mm-hmm. But tell us the incident also, if there is something.
No. I'll get one. Actually, to be very honest, because and a lot of people ask me this. ऐसा कोई ब्रांड किया जो हम लोग सब जानते हैं? हाँ, मतलब किए हैं, मतलब आपने देखे हैं, अभी वो करके मैंने छोड़ दिए, and luckily I think to my favor, and I don't mean to be, actually it's not even something to brag about. We'll get to it when it happens and it becomes big, but I have somehow always built brands from the base.
Yeah. Oh.
Some of the brands I have even named them, or have been a part of naming them, right? And somehow a lot of my clients, or a lot of the brands that I have worked with, or even design studios and all of that, they have had that confidence that aapko kya lagta hai? Because often what I do is, the hack is to have a process. Okay. So there's this movie called Focus, right? And
Will Smith, right?
Yes. Oh my God. Have you watched it? I love it. So before he goes to con, right? So he starts subconsciously tapping into the brain of that person he's going to con from like a few days before.
The target.
Yes.
The mark.
Yes.
Are you okay?
So he's actually, and that is how, I'm not saying this is how you scam a client into understanding what you, so that's not the point. The point is that don't be a surprise element to the brand you're working with. Work in unison with them. So that is why whenever we work with any brand, so there is this brand and they have launched recently called Zoop.
Zoop.
Yeah. So their Insta is Let's Zoop, so you can check it out. I have been a part of that brand since the naming of it, since the conceptualizing of the product itself. Like they said that, Kritika, we have come up with this whole product, and it's like this dehydrated smoothies and things like that, and it's really interesting as a concept. And often for me, when I work with a product, when I work with a brand, it's important for me to believe in that product. मुझे ही अगर नहीं समझ आ रहा तो मैं क्या बेचूंगी, so they came to me saying that, Kritika, this is a nutraceutical brand, right? And now you know that it's called Zoop, so you can imagine the journey we took from there, right? We started with researching from the beginning, from the core, कि market में लोग कर क्या रहे हैं in the whole nutraceutical segment. How are they selling supplements, healthy supplements, and how are they building that narrative, which is length and breadth to which they are stretching that narrative. How are they connecting to their consumer? Because by the end of it, they are selling something which is almost close to a medicinal.
Close.
Yeah. Like luckily medicines don't have to brand themselves anyhow, thank God. But हम लोग तो मर जाते हैं. But so how do you get the confidence of the consumer कि हम तुम्हें non-preservatives, gluten-free, vegetarian, this, that. How are you getting that person in confidence, right? So, and people have built their own narratives, and it is fantabulous nationally and internationally, right? So I take about 10 brands, right? Check out, I stalk them like left, right, and center. What have they done on their website? What have they done on their social media? How are they promoting themselves? Who are the influencers they are connecting with? So people think that कोई भी influencer, अरे इसके पास 1 million followers हैं, हम इसको अपना brand, अपना platform बेचने को बोलेंगे, हमें इतने followers आ जाएंगे. नहीं. She is a lifestyle influencer. You can't go to a lifestyle influencer and tell her to sell cyber security, for all I know, right? She doesn't invite those kind of people. Maybe, yeah, to a larger narrative, yeah, maybe it will create awareness and this and that. But think about your brand and think about who and which are those channels, even if today's day those channels are individuals.
So this looks like, a lot of these small, marketing departments, branding departments within small agencies and small companies. This to me looks like an ongoing challenge and battle every day. For example, हम लोग जब भी क्रिकेट खेलते थे ना गली में या बिल्डिंग में, जो बैट लेके आता ना वो कैप्टन है. So if there is a conference room जहाँ पे ये brand discussion चल रहा है, क्या नाम होना चाहिए, क्या strategy होना चाहिए, कैसे हमको करना चाहिए, I have seen generally you tend to hear the opinion of the guy who's paid the highest. इसका salary सबसे ज़्यादा है boss, तो
सबसे ज़्यादा intelligent वही है.
सबसे ज़्यादा intelligent वो होगा. That's the first thing. The second thing could also be company इसका है. So what are those skills?
Factors.
Yeah, what are those skills that you think? What are those strengths that you think that people currently in marketing rooms, in war rooms, in strategy rooms, because everyone is making brands every day. सबको brand बनाना है, right? It's just that they don't know how. What do you want to tell them? One thing you told me was be loud. What are those other things? Because that'll work like a cheat sheet for all our
and
people.
Cater to the whys. See, even when I was talking about those segments that we research through, right? They cater to the different whys. तुम fitness freak हो, तुम्हारा why हम cater करते हैं. तुम्हें health issues है, हम तुम्हारा, you are beauty conscious, we cater. So your nutraceuticals get into those categories. After you have understood the whole thing, then you kind of you plot a graph. You have to have a process. You have to do your research. Trust me, I might have not read a book in my life, but I research. Your research game has to be up top. You have to know what all are people doing?
And even if you're working on design, even if you're working as a commercial art or an applied art or a copywriter even more, right? You have to do research.
No. So even when you're doing research, so there is a very thin line, right, between researching, referencing, and then creation.
Oh.
Right? You have to be strict with yourself. Don't go in spiral, scroll, पढ़ते गए, links add होते जा रहे हैं, tabs. It's an endless spiral.
So you're saying
Researching and referencing
is different from referencing.
Far away.
Would you mean referencing would be slightly more copying? Is that what it is? And research might actually...
Inspiration.
Oh, inspiration.
Please.
Okay. And research may actually bring about new insights?
Research is what strengthens your content strategy. कि ये लोग ये कर रहे हैं, हम लोग को क्या करना है, हमारी टारगेट ऑडियंस क्या देख रही है, what are they seeking, what do we have to help, and how are we serving the people. So your 3 golden circles, right? Mm-hmm. The why, how, and what. Any communication that you try to create, always go back and forth to that cycle. What? सब जानते हैं क्यों आप बेच रहे हो तुम, पेस्ट बेच रहे हो. Again going back to toothpaste, right? How हमारे पास इतने सारे लोग हैं, साइंटिस्ट से रेफरेंस्ड है, ये है वो है, you know, हमारे टूथपेस्ट में नमक है, you know, things like that. But the why? We care about the sensitivity of your teeth. We know how awkward you feel when you are shying away from smiling in public or having a hearty laugh sitting close to somebody. Trying to tap into the core issue of a person. You are communicating to a person. Decode that person and that person's ecosystem. Which are the brands that they interact with, not just in your category. So when I say nutraceutical, सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि you only look at the nutraceutical brands in the market. You take case scenarios. कि चलो ये हमारा एक individual है. उसका income इतना है, right? Demographic, geography वो यहाँ पे रहता है, मुंबई में रहता है. मुंबई में किधर रहता है? Because as we all know it, मुंबई में भी अगर तुम वैसाई में रहते हो, थाने में रहते हो, विक्रोली में रहते हो, पवई, बांद्रा, वहीं पे तुम्हारा change in mentality, change in background, everything.
India is like a different country every 50 kilometers.
Exactly. I'm talking about like smaller businesses which are like starting only from like state to state and things like that, right? So now तुम्हारा वहीं पे हो गया. फिर बाद में, which phone does that person have? Is that person an iPhone user or does he use an Oppo or a Samsung or what? So there are multiple decodes on that. So you've taken all your raw material, right? Raw material is your research. When you ask, that's why a part of that process is questionnaire. You have to talk to at least 20 to 30 people in that ecosystem or possible or prospect consumer and a consumer which can or who can maybe never be your consumer.
Brand owner has to do this. Because if you want to go and give it out and give it out to some agency who may give it out to some students to fill up some forms.
तो तुम्हें समझना, हाँ, exactly.
Then it's garbage in, garbage out.
तुम्हें खुद बैठ के you have to talk to, when we do the research, at least like 4 to 5 people from different cities, different age groups, different income brackets. Right? Sometimes depending on the project or the product, different genders. Right? So depending on the product, you kind of see कि मेरा prospect consumer क्या हो सकता है. You create a graph. This is the closest it gets to a person who will come and consume or be a consumer to me. This is the farthest. This is so. How does each of their behavior change? Right? And how much would they be ready to invest in some product like that or a service like that? वो लोग बाकी चीजों में कितना खर्च कर रहे हैं, तो you will understand their spending capacity or spending pattern.
Yeah, it almost looks like this is such an all-round sort of
It
job.
is. I told you, it's a wholesome
holistic
thing. It's a
thing.
holistic thing. You can't sit ऐसा घोड़े के
can't
ना
work
के
in
जैसे
silos,
कि
no?
मतलब हाँ. That is why I say that each and every one who is a part of that ecosystem, or when we call them the custodians of the brand, even the people who are making it as agencies or as professionals, as freelancers, as brand owners, everyone has to be a part of this. That's why I make it, when you said, how do you convince people to actually agree to what you are trying to say? Make them a part of your process. You are making a brand for them. कहीं कोने में बैठ के ड्राइंग नहीं कर रहे हो तुम या पोएट्री नहीं कर रहे हो. It's not art, it's not expression. You are selling someone's brand. It is their baby. You are designing clothes for that baby. You're grooming that baby. वो बच्चा चला जाएगा eventually अपने parent के साथ. तुम बैठे रहोगे side में.
Such an insightful conversation, Kritika. There's so much more that we have to talk about, and there's so much. There are going to be more podcasts that we're going to do. I think we need to unbundle this a little bit more for people, who may be starting their own personal journey of personal branding.
Yeah.
What I heard from you today was stop treating the internet like a giant hoarding. There's so much more to that.
Diversify. There are so many ways. There are so many emotions to tap into. So many different narratives and metaphors to actually talk with and talk through. Use them. They're all there. Just tap, 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 tap.
Fabulous. I hope you share more knowledge and information on your Instagram handles,
Of course.
or on your social
We'll
media
try.
handles. People will look you up as Kritika Kaul, on their
Absolutely.
favorite search engine, which I'm
Absolutely.
not naming.
Which they can.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Kritika. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.